kuja kwenu kwa wingi vile mlivyo kumeonyesha ya kwamba na hata nyinyi mmefurahia sana na kazi ambayo ninaifanya ya kusaidia wananchi wenzetu. Hangekuwa tajiri kama si jasho yako. Hakuna haja ya kwenda sasa ati kwao kuambia mimi nataka kura. Wao wanajua kama mimi nafaa.
On the 2nd of March 1975, Maasai herders in Ngong stumbled upon a male body dumped in the forest. Little did they know that the body they found would, end up dividing the Kikuyus into two. The body was of the then abducted and missing Kikuyu politician, JM Kariuki. People could be seen talking in small groups discussing the incident. The body had been tortured, his teeth was missing, fingers amputated. The whole of Kenya was in shock and fear could be seen everywhere. Nobody wanted to talk about it in public and honestly, even more worse to strangers. The authoritative Jomo Kenyatta regime wouldn't tolerate that. Any sentiments regarded as against the government would dub you a nuisance, and could either lead you to many years in prison or, well, assassination. The freedom of speech that Kenyans enjoy nowadays was non-existent. Yes, it was a reality. JM Kariuki, a political pioneer, Mau Mau detainee, and a harsh criticizer of the Jomo Kenyatta regime, had been assassinated. The evidence allegedly implicated Kenyatta's inner circle, including his bodyguard Wanyoike Thungu and GSU commander Ben Gethi. JM Kariuki was abducted after a supposed security meeting with state operatives. His tortured body, missing teeth and severed fingers, was found in Ngong forest. This did not go well with the Kikuyus of Nyandarua, Nakuru and Nyeri. They saw it as a betrayal and an assassination of one of their own by the regime they brought into power through their blood. Yes, you heard it right. A regime they brought into power by shedding blood. JM Kariuki was from Nyandarua, a Mau Mau activist and a sitting MP of Nyandarua North. During the fight for Kenya's independence, there was a militia group known as the Mau Mau, who were fighting against the colonial masters. Most of these heroes were from Nyeri and Nyandarua. Their leader, the late Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi, was from Nyeri. But when Kenya gained independence, the first prime minister, who later on became the first president, was from Kiambu. Jomo Kenyatta was from Kiambu, a region, that was seen as having done too little in the Mau Mau uprising. On this aspect, the Mau Mau who survived the fight for freedom, well, they felt betrayed. It was honestly a slap on the face to them. The vast majority of them were still living in poverty under land injustice, and yet, one of them, who was fighting for them, had been assassinated by a government ran by Kiambu people. This drove a wedge between the elite Kiambu community and the rest of the Kikuyu nation. A wedge that really only unplugged when Kibaki, a son of Nyeri, was elected president. Josiah Mwangi Kariuki, popularly known as JM Kariuki, remains one of Kenya's most enigmatic and revered political figures. Born on March 21, 1929, near Nakuru, Kariuki grew up in a settler-dominated Rift Valley, where his parents worked as laborers. His early education in Catholic mission schools, Karima and Kerugoya, and later in Uganda exposed him to colonial injustices, shaping his political consciousness. His political awakening was cemented when he heard Jomo Kenyatta speak in 1946, inspiring him to join the Mau Mau uprising. Arrested in 1953, he endured 7 brutal years in British detention camps, an experience he documented in his book Mau Mau Detainee, published in 1963. After independence in 1963, Kariuki became a key figure in Kenyatta's government, serving as his personal secretary and later as a member of parliament for Nyandarua North. However, his true influence really came from his business acumen. He amassed wealth through land ownership, acquiring vast estates in Gilgil and Ol-Kalou. He also ventured into business, owning hotels like Castle Inn, holding shares in East African breweries, and running lucrative beer distribution firms. On top of that, Kariuki was known for his flamboyant lifestyle, owning racehorses and driving luxury cars like a Bentley and a Jaguar. Despite all his wealth, Kariuki was deeply philanthropic, funding schools, women's groups, and Harambee projects, often outshining Kenyatta's own donations. This was, honestly, not taken well by Kenyatta himself and his close allies. By the early 1970s, Kariuki's relationship with Kenyatta had soured. He openly criticized the government's corruption, land grabs, and economic disparities, becoming a vocal advocate for the poor. His speeches, especially his famous 10 millionaires and 10 million beggars remark, really infuriated the political elite. These words made him famous among the Mau Mau, who had fought for independence but were still living in poverty without land. A plan had to be hatched to stop him before it became too late. The government started by crippling his financial power. The National Bank of Kenya moved to bankrupt him over loans. Something, government critics saw as politically motivated. Politicians were instructed not to interact with him. The intention of that move was to isolate him and portray him as a lonely man with ground support. He was falsely linked to the Maskini Liberation Organization, a shadowy group blamed for bombings in Nairobi. With this, the Jomo Kenyatta government wanted to tarnish his name to Kenyans and blame him for the bombings that were happening in Nairobi. Days before his death, JM was warned by Nakuru Mayor Mburu Gichua at Stag's Head Hotel. It is alleged that Mburu Gichua told him this: "You want to cause trouble in Nakuru, your days are numbered, we are going to finish you." His friend JM Kariuki, an assistant minister, revealed that a plot to kill him had been hatched at State House Nairobi, citing his fiery speeches against inequality as justification. On March 1, 1975, JM planned to travel to Mombasa by bus to recuperate. A friend, anonymously booked tickets for him and a female companion, Elizabeth Koinange. But he cancelled at the last minute after receiving a tip-off that he was being surveilled. The OTC bus he would have boarded exploded, killing 27 passengers. This was seen as a suspected assassination attempt on him. His final hours in freedom were spent at the Hilton Hotel in Nairobi CBD. On March 2nd, JM visited the Hilton Hotel to collect a balance of $340, which is about 35,254 shillings today, from a cashed check. He was accompanied by Ben Gethi, the GSU commandant, and also his childhood friend, who lured him to a so-called security meeting at Special Branch Headquarters, Kingsway House, under false pretenses. Witnesses reported that JM was hesitant, fearing a trap. Gethi gave him a loaded pistol for protection, which was likely just to stage a confrontation with the state agents. It is alleged that, at Kingsway House, JM faced a hostile interrogation panel. Wanyoke Thungu, who was Kenyatta's bodyguard, struck him, knocking out his teeth. When JM reached for his gun, Gethi shot him in the hand, and then executed him. His body was dumped in Ngong Forest. After Maasai herders found the torso, it was placed in the mortuary and labeled as an unknown Luo gangster to obscure his identity. Forensic science back then was not advanced as it is nowadays, and DNA identification was actually non-existent. The then Attorney General, Sir Charles Nyanjo, claimed in Parliament the parliamentary report is biased and prejudicial. The House should merely note it. This was Nyanjo's attempt to suppress the damning findings of the Kariuki murder inquiry. Buteri MP Martin Shikuku's provocative declaration in Parliament that Kanu is dead, criticizing the ruling party's corruption and repression after Kariuki's assassination, well, it really didn't go well. He was detained without trial. Student protests and parliamentary fury erupted, but honestly no perpetrators were ever prosecuted. JM's last interview, just weeks before his death, condemned Kenya's elite for creating, in his words, 10 millionaires and 10 million beggars, a critique that frankly sealed his fate. His death sparked nationwide protests, uniting Kenyans across ethnic lines against authoritarianism and inequality. University of Nairobi students stormed the streets, blocking all major streets of Nairobi. Chants of justice for JM were heard during demonstrations that led to campus closures and mass arrests, marking the start of student-led resistance to Kenyatta's regime. Kikuyu artists composed songs in praise of him. A Mau Mau hero was gone. gone forever. But his life was not taken by the British colonizers. It was indeed a regime they fought to bring to power. Jomo Kenyatta was instead chest-thumping and was quoted saying this in Nakuru, "We shall have to trample the wreckers underfoot to finish them off completely. We shall mow them down like grass." This was seen as a warning against dissent. He later said this in Mombasa, "Those who speak ill of the government and propagate rumors should realize that pangas are still in stock and could be put to use if the need arises." JM Kariuki's assassination, still remains unsolved to this day, and it's widely considered that this tragic event really reshaped the politics of Mount Kenya. Even decades later, his vision of economic justice, well, it remains unfulfilled. But his legacy endures as a powerful symbol of resistance. After Jomo Kenyatta passed away, the then Vice President, Daniel Moi, took over the presidency, and honestly, he continued with the same iron fist rule. Kikuyus wanted the presidency they had fought so hard for back, but this was only possible if they reunited and forged alliances with other communities. This actually led to the birth of Ford and what many call the Second Liberation. Leaders like Jaramogi Odinga, Kenneth Matiba, Martin Shikuku, Charles Rubia, and Raila Odinga joined forces, and that's how multi-party Kenya was born. The wedge between Kiambu and the rest of the Kikuyu nation, well, it was finally unplugged after Kibaki, a son of Nyeri, was elected president. Here are some of the famous quotes by current famous politicians who were inspired by him. Jimmy Wanjigi once said, "JM was killed for telling the truth. Today, the oppression he spoke of is still there." That's really a reflection even decades later, linking Kariuki's murder to ongoing inequality. And then there's Rigathi Gachagua, who made a jab in 2022 saying, "Don't kill me the way your father killed JM Kariuki." Gachagua was accusing the Kenyatta family of involvement in Kariuki's death. Kariuki's famous quote, "We do not want a Kenya of 10 millionaires and 10 million beggars," was invoked by politicians like President William Ruto in his so-called hustler versus dynasty rhetoric. But, critics argued it was exploited for populism rather than genuine reform. JM Kariuki was a complex figure, a capitalist who fought for socialism, a wealthy man who spoke for the poor, and a loyalist who became a martyr. His assassination exposed the brutality of Kenya's post-independence elite, and his words still resonate in a nation grappling with inequality. As Kenya continues to confront corruption and class divisions, Kariuki's dream of a just society remains both a warning and an inspiration. Thank you very much for watching until the end. If you know anything about JM Kariuki that we did not mention, please inform us in the comment section. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share.
Ndaririkana mutigaire JM Kariuki wanjuthia muthenya uria akuire hindi ya Kariuki akuire aria othe mathiete mathiko-ini ma Mwangi wanjuthia nginya athuri akuru nginya atumia akuru nginya ciana cia ngenge gutiri utariraga na athuri akuru ona gutuika maithori mao maturaga kuraihu ni mokite nginya maitho ndakwira uguo Kariuki makirira hindi no mundu gwitwo Kariuki wanjuthia arathikwo na wari uhoro munene muno. Mwangi wanjuthia ari murata wakwa wa ngoro, wari murata wakwa wa hakuhi. Twamenyanite nake ni undu wa muru wa baba uria maturite kuria ithamirio nake wetagwo Mwangi wa Thayu. Gutire mundu utamui ni undu niwe wari mwandiki wa Jomo Kenyatta.
Sisi watu wa Kenya tunasikitika sana kwa mauaji ya marehemu JM Kariuki.